My name is Camila Gonzalez, and I am a host and producer with TLN Media Group. And I'm so excited for this panel because they are two of the faces that are most recognizable from the sport in this country. They have paved the way leading up to the success that we saw in 2022. We have Julien de Guzman and Patrice Bernier joining us today. So please give your warmest welcome to these two stars from the men's national team. Come on, I think they deserve a louder applause than that. Welcome, welcome. Now, Julien de Guzman was actually the first Canadian player to play for La Liga, was the all-time cap leader for the men's national team, right. Captain Patrice Bernier, absolute legend, coming all the way from Montreal, 13 years with the Canadian men's national team. Such an honor to have you here in Calgary. How are you doing? I heard you flew in today.
Oh, great. Just came from the cold Toronto, warm Calgary, so it's great to be here. And certainly excited for this great opportunity to speak in front of all these wonderful fans.
Yeah, same thing. Great weather because it was raining in Montreal for the last 2 days. But no, really excited to be in a soccer-specific show and talking about the game, talking about the national program and growing the game. So it's really nice and excited to be here with everybody.
Now, Julien, you're familiar, of course, with the Toronto scene and Patrice with Montreal. What do you know about the Calgary soccer scene? Was it surprising to see this many people out here supporting the beautiful game?
Well, I'm glad they're here because I just saw them lift the trophy for the Canadian Premier League, so that was great to see. So they are the champions of Canada, which is a wonderful statement, and this is great to see the turnout as well. So congratulations, Calgary.
And Patrice, what about yourself? I mean, again, a huge turnout here, celebrating a big moment in Calgary soccer history.
Yeah, great moment. For me, it's this is my second time in Calgary. Last time I was here, I came for the U17 provincial tournaments, and which led me to go to the national program later on. But yeah, when I was playing in the A-League, Calgary was around the league, and you see how it always maintained having a professional soccer scene over here. And like Julien said, they're now champions, and that's great because for the game across the country, we need, let's say, every province to have at least one big team. I know some have two, so that's very good. And have to see all these people here is really shows how much the game has grown and how much people really love soccer and or want to be part of it in some way.
And you've both transitioned into ambassador broadcast roles, but let's go back to when you first started, Julien. You were one of the Canadian men's national team's legends, truly well-deserved title. Where was the soccer industry when you first started? What were the hopes like as a young player compared to where you see it now?
Well, where it is now is where I wanted to be, playing in a World Cup with Patrice. But, pretty much you go back to the year 2000. For me, it was all new for a lot of Canadians who didn't really know about the game. It wasn't really popular, but for myself, it was a passion and a dream to play for my country, to play in Europe as well. So, it was a long way to get there. We didn't have access to the social media, the internet to be watching the highlights over and over again. We had to get ourselves on cable and make sure we watched TSN Soccer Saturday or TLN on the Sundays in the Serie A. So that was our access to football. But I wanted to get there one day, and that was my way of pushing myself to get there. And it eventually worked, and now we're seeing many more Canadians playing those top divisions and our country representing in the top tournaments in the world.
And a lot more opportunities to see the game as well, like you said, across the nation, not just on TV, on social media, but in their backyards. I mean, watching a team like Cavalry FC is huge, and for kids to have that chance. Patrice, for you, I mean, looking at the way that soccer is now in Montreal versus when you first started, is it a huge difference, and what has changed?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more kids playing it, but there's a structure now. If you could say there's a ladder, a pathway that you can see yourself go through. I started with the Montreal Impact, but there wasn't an academy. Now there's a CF Montreal Academy. There's different structures that allow you to say, okay, if I dream about being professional, how do I get there? Well, back then, in the 90s, we saw a bit of soccer here and there. And then it was, okay, how do I get to maybe being on TV like those guys? There was the national program, but how do I get into that? And some of the times you mostly had to see what are the opportunities. I may have to leave the country to go and pursue this dream, which we all did. Julian a lot younger than me, and I actually played hockey, so it was probably easier for me to say I might go further in hockey while I was still playing soccer and saying, okay, I want to do this because I love it more. But in my country, one sport, the pathway is clear. The other one is I have to scrap the ways and try to get newspapers and like he said, there's no social media, trying to get feeding my passion with other forms to be able to say, I want to get there, but how do I get there? And now it's a lot more clear cut, and there's a CPL, there's structures, there's professional layers that allow kids to say, okay, I can be a pro. And this is not just for the men's side, even the women's side now you see it's starting to develop a lot better, and kids can actually see their dream potentially materialize and knowing there's a true structure to reach.
And 100%, it was extremely difficult for both of you, like you said. I mean, compared to what the pathway would have been if you were starting today in 2023 wanting to achieve that dream. Is that part of the reason why you're both so deeply involved with the sport, even beyond your professional career, giving back, talking to children?
Yeah, for me, it's important that we stay involved. I mean, first and foremost, it's still my passion. And, I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done to keep growing this sport in our country. We want to become a soccer nation, but it doesn't just start from seeing our heroes playing World Cups in the Olympics. It starts from the grassroots, and we need to keep continuing to facilitate those pathways for the youth, on both male and female, and create leagues and create stronger leagues. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but it's going to come from those who have played the game at the highest levels. My background and my master's and my education is football, from where I played and the countries I represented and the clubs I represented. So that's giving back. And, some of my involvement has to do with running a soccer team in League One Ontario, the Simcoe County Rovers, who I work with, Janine Becky, Tiba Hutchinson, Daniil Henry, Kyle Laren, who are current pros. But these are footballing minds giving back to the game, to soccer programs. And I think that should be the idea post-career for a lot of us players who have experienced it, and just passing on that message to the youth and creating more dreams and allowing the future to be, viable for a lot of these young aspiring players. So that's always been my passion. And then obviously doing stuff on TV, relaying the message as Patrice does as well. But it's a very important one, but most importantly, it's the love of my life.
And Patrice, I would ask you the same question. Why is it so important for you to give back to the sport?
Like Julian said, since we were kids, I think it was a passion. It was much more than just being professional. We enjoyed the game, the people that we know we are friends because of soccer. And when I see the game growing, I said, okay, the wealth that I got was from learning from the game, being abroad, and how can I bring that back? And to say 20-something years later that I'm still living in the game, even though I'm no longer a player, is astounding to see that now the game is allowing for your passion to not just be a soccer player. It could be a coach, it could be an analyst on TV and other venues, and it's just to really share myself. I have a soccer company who actually puts equipment out there, so it's to find ways to grow the game. And like you said, Julian said it, share the knowledge that we've gained, the experience, and talking to kids to say, yeah, there is a way. We've reached our dream. It was maybe the more difficult way than now, but that it's accessible, and that you can become a Julian de Guzman or a Alfonso Davies, Jonathan David now, and it's in your backyard, and that's the way to grow the game. And then after that, if you move on to bigger and bigger clubs, like Julian went to La Liga, I went to in Germany to play, you can follow those footsteps. So, but it's by sharing that knowledge with a lot of players who have that experience, to share it to the youth so that they can take it, and if they take 1%, allows them to go into their pathway.
And I want to see a show of hands. If anyone in the audience has seen a Canada soccer game, have you been to watch the team? Wow. Amazing. Now, the experience that you had in the stadium, I think, would be very different from, 20 years ago, 10 years ago. You guys had a tough job at growing the sport in Canada, and you really were the trailblazers for what we see now at the stadiums and at the qualifiers. What is the difference between representing the Canadian national team when you first started versus what we see now in the lead up to the World Cup? And, what do you think made the difference for you to be able to play a role in the growth of the sport and the success that we see today? Big
Yeah,
question. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, no, I may get you to remind me on that second question, but the first, I would say, from when Patrice and I used to play, it was just one, representing your country, but then two is trying to grasp the minds and raise the awareness of the game in our country. And we were never recognized, playing for our country or in Canada at times, because at BMO Field or in Toronto, we would play against Jamaica, for instance, and you'd find more Jamaican fans than Canadian fans, right? So today, as I look at this audience, this is what represents our fan base for soccer in Canada. They're much more educated, they're well aware, they're more driven, and they're behind the team, whether they're men's or women's. I just saw the women's game against Jamaica, and it was a packed house. And I get goosebumps thinking about that and where this game is at today. So I think today, you look at this, it's almost more of a complete picture of what we wanted when we played for the national team, but it's finally happening now. So that's the first question. The second question was?
Well, being a part of that growth and knowing that you did have to make those sacrifices and you did have to kind of be an ambassador and a player to try and grow the sport, and seeing now that the hard work really did pay off.
Yeah, for me, and again, it was important for me to do that. You sacrifice a lot as a player. You sacrifice time with your friends, family. You pretty much put yourself at all the risk you could think of. You sacrifice your education. You sacrifice everything completely just so you could put Canada on the map. That was always my goal, my vision, leaving home and proving to the world, not just to Canadians, but to the world, that Canadians can do it. And that was one of my objectives as a Canadian, and it worked out. But it's just a message not for myself and just the guys on the national team. It's a message for everyone that this is the story that needs to keep happening over and over and over again. Keep growing the generations. This is the reason why today we could talk about the golden generation.
Absolutely, Patrice. I would ask you.
Yeah, if I can add on to what Julian already said, it's because at the end, a lot of time was the credibility at our clubs. Most of the time, because you're also representing your country, which we all love to do, but we had to fight a lot of times because now there's international windows where you can go to your national team and you're not missing games in your club. While back then we had to miss because not all of us were playing in first division. Sometimes some were playing in second division, and you had to go and be a trailblazer to tell your club that you're representing your country and you're fighting to go to qualifiers, because Canada didn't have the standard that now people see Canada being top 40, top 30 in the world, and paying attention that there is prominent talent in Canada. Back then, like Julian said, which I'm very proud of what he's done, also being first player to play in La Liga, because he played there, not being a dual national, is being a Canadian international and showing that Canada has talent. I had to go to Germany and Norway and Denmark, and you had to create that awareness that Canadian players can play. And now to see what it is, we're happy because it's grown. But the difficulties were that you had to sometimes go into difficult situations and confront your club pretty much to go and represent your country. And sometimes when you came back, wasn't always rosy, because you probably sometimes you lose your spot in the team because you were gone as games were still going on, trying to represent Canada and trying to go to the World Cup.
And Patrice, what opportunities and challenges do you see for the players today that are playing in the national team?
Now you see guys are playing. People forget, because Julian, Craig Forrest played in Premier League, playing La Liga, but you didn't know about it. If you were following the national team, you would know about it, but the rest of Canada didn't pay attention. Now you know Alphonso Davies is playing in Bayern Munich. You know Jonathan David is playing in Lille. You're following Steven Eustáquio playing Porto, or all the players. And so you see the awareness, and you see that the Canadian passport is valued. And because now these players are also playing there, but they're top players. Alphonso Davies is considered one of the best left backs in the world, not just playing in a good club, but one of the best players in the world at his position. And now this is what sets other of the younger players saying, okay, these European mindsets, Latin American, they're coming to pay attention to say, okay, there is talent here. There's more credibility, more talent, and we want to follow. And CPL, MLS, now eyeballs are now watching all these young talents, and you're seeing more and more, some of them leaving here where there's a platform and going to Europe and succeeding. And so those are the opportunities that are here. And like I said, some players are playing Calgary, And now, because they're playing, games are broadcast, some clubs are paying attention to who's the next talent, who's the next Julian de Guzman, who's the next Alfonso Davies, who's the next Jonathan David, and other talents that are choosing Canada even when they have another nation that they could represent. So those are the opportunities that are now present for Canadian players, men and women.
Amazing. Now, Julian, Patrice, we do have a special surprise for everyone that is here. There is a special prize pack that our friends at Maple Lodge Farms have given us. So we're going to play a little trivia game about the Canadian men's national team. And I do have to grab my phone, and it's in my boot. That's a fun life hack to check out the trivia questions. And I'm going to need your help because, as I said in the previous panel, I can't see very far. And we need to see who was the first person to stand up. And they will give us the answer. And then you can see our volunteers who, she's right over there. And she'll make sure that you get your prize pack. So let's take a look. And if no one gets the first question, we go to the second, we go to the third until we can get an answer. But I think this one should be pretty easy. Are you guys ready? All right. Before going to Qatar in 2022, when was the last time that the Canadian men's national team qualified for the World Cup?
Oh, there.
Who did we see? In the back? In the hat.
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, with the hat. Well, he's going to get a mic so we can hear, but I think
Let's see,
he
let's
got
see.
the right answer.
1986.
1986. Round of applause. All right. Thank you for participating. She will make sure that you get your prize pack. And there's still one more chance during the Canadian women's national team panel, so don't worry if you didn't get that one. All right, Julian, let's go back to thinking about your career. You've had so many incredible moments with the Canadian men's national team. Can you pinpoint a favorite?
I would say my favorite has to do with the 2007 Gold Cup. And the reason why was not only because I was playing with this gentleman next to me. I think that was probably the closest in terms of quality and talent of players from what we're seeing today. That was probably one of the best teams I've ever played with and witnessed in that tournament. And we made it to the semifinals of that Gold Cup. We got robbed by the U.S. And the referees there. But I would say that was probably the one team and group of players that should have qualified for the World Cup in 2010.
It's always the USA.
Always the U.S. in the U.S.
When you're playing in the U.S.
All right, Patrice, and what was your favorite moment? Was it the same one, or is there another moment in your career that really sticks out?
There's several. One is, of course, your first cap. And I was lucky enough to play against Czech Republic. And they were third or fourth in the world. And Pavel Nedved was about to get the Ballon d'Or a few weeks later. So when you say your first cap is against Czech Republic and Pavel Nedved, that's always great to have. But 2007, because before this generation, we were considered the golden generation, the one that should go to the World Cup. And we did fairly well at the Gold Cup 2007 and 2009, going to semifinals or quarterfinals. And having played with those guys, we had that belief that we could make it because we, like I said, we had players playing in Germany, Bundesliga, La Liga, Premier League, playing top clubs in Scandinavia. So 2007 was great. It's also a regret because we felt it was a unfinished business. Unfortunately, as you can go on YouTube, you can see that the U.S. Left with a disallowed goal that we scored, which would have tied the game. So 2007 was definitely a highlight of my time with the national team. And I'll finish off. I finished in 2017, and my first roommate in the national team was Julian de Guzman. This was 2003, and I finished in 2017, and my roommate was Alfonso Davies. That was his first camp. So to finish off, knowing that the program was going in with a new generation, because our last moments were not the greatest with the national team. So knowing that, hey, Alfonso Davies is coming, and these young guys are coming, something's happening here. I didn't know we were going to go to World Cup, but definitely knowing I was with a prominent talent and that potentially would go far, which we already know he's doing, was another highlight to know that I'm finishing off with a young kid that has pretty much the world at his feet.
Passing on the torch to the new generation. What did you see during that first camp with Alfonso Davies? Like, did you know this kid could change the future of Canadian soccer, or were you like, oh, hey, he's pretty good?
I had played against him because I was at Montreal Impact at the time, Vancouver. So you see prominent talent, and we had another one in our club at the time, Baloo, that was considered as good. But at that time, I got to see him. You really know the player when you get to be with him day in, day out at practice, because you see the games, though they're highlights, but at practice. And once I saw what he could do at practice at 17, you saw the potential. We didn't know he would be heading to Bayern Munich, but we know this kid, if everything goes well, he will go somewhere far, and he could push the national team. And then after that, I saw he was 17, because I was 38. So I had to get him up, because early mornings, go to breakfast and all that. So, but it was nice to, like you said, pass the torch, knowing this young talent, if everything goes well, he could really do things that we imagined we could do, and be on the pedestal of the highest profile players in the world right now.
And you both did have to go to Europe to kind of keep expanding your careers because, like, as you said, there weren't that many opportunities here in Canada. Can you speak to the importance of the MLS, now the CPL, and what that's doing to this generation?
It keeps everyone closer to their families, I tell you that. You know, I think that's a special piece that I'm beginning to recognize as a former pro. When you come back home, so many things have changed, and your families are waiting for you. I was gone from home for almost 15 years. And now that you see everyone, the support and sacrifices that they went through and how much harder it was for the parents, it breaks my heart at times just to think about what they went through. So knowing that Canadians could play in the CPL, they could play in MLS, they're not far from home, I think that's amazing. And I have a little guy, when I look at my son at times, I'm like, you know what? I don't think I could let you leave at home at the age of 12 like my brother did. Or I don't think I could let you leave home at the age of 16 like I did. And those are the sacrifices that we had to do, and our parents had to go through some serious hardships, and it was never easy for them for the time that we were gone home. So that's special for me to see that players now are playing in good leagues. They're close to their families, because the more support you have from your family, the stronger you could be. And I think that's going to be a huge advantage for a lot of the young kids that get a chance to play pro, especially in the same time zone as their family.
And Patrice, I would ask you the same thing.
Yeah, it's the structure's there, so it's to condition them, to prepare them for the platform that it is to become a pro. And once you get pro, you realize the statistics prove it. Most people that leave their territory tend to struggle. Yes, there's some stories that are great, but when you start off at home, you get that foundation, that base, that strength, that support that you need, because once you move on to the pro world, and then if you go to Europe, it's another struggle. And the platform of playing at home helps. And sometimes it's also, you don't necessarily, sometimes people, yes, they all see Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Manchester City, but playing at home, having a career, playing 10, 15 years, I look at Jonathan Osorio and TFC, I've seen several players who have very good careers in MLS, and now the ones who are in CPL, like a Kyle Becker that I had a chance to play with, who's at home in his hometown. Those are the things. They're giving back, but they're playing and they're enjoying it, because the passion is there, but it's also the ups and downs, and being around your supportive network is very important to reach the pro ranks and to also have a career at the pro level.
And 2007, as you mentioned, was some unfinished business. 2022, the new generation got it done, and they did it in, of course, your honor, and they've all paid their respects to all of the players that paved the way. Talk me through that moment when you're at BMO Field seeing these boys qualify for the first time in what was 36 years.
Well, it felt like minus 36, I'll tell you that.
It was cold.
It was cold, but no, I'll be honest, it was a remarkable moment. I mean, going back to March and celebrating with all the boys on the field, and it's like, these guys are going to the World Cup, and not even just the team, but players that we played with, players that have struggled for so many cycles and years to get to this moment. We finally did it. We felt a part of that team and that group and that family, and then going to the World Cup, and then being in Qatar and witnessing all those guys on the field, it was remarkable. And I think that's something I will cherish for the rest of my life. I've always told myself before I went pro, and you watch 86, that's the reason why I want to play for Canada, And now we're seeing it again, and I'm glad to be alive to witness that. We're going to see more of it as we move forward, and we can only imagine how much stronger this nation could be when it comes to being not just a successful nation, but creating more talented players.
Yeah, I was working on TV that day, or at least I won soccer, but I had to ask to go on the field because it was a great moment. And at the end of the day, you know the struggle that we all went through to try to reach it, and this group was making it. So it was a touching moment. And like Julian said, after that, once it was Qatar, I got to sit with my daughters and my son, and they were wearing the jersey proudly and identifying that they're at the World Cup. I watched it in '86. I was 6 years old, but then it seemed like they saw other people, the country behind where they're born, and they could potentially go there one day. And that was a proud moment to be able to watch those games and celebrate that first goal. And you're not just cheering maybe another country because you have to go to be another route because Canada wasn't there. So it was a great moment. And you saw some former players tear-eyed because they all knew. Everybody knew the sacrifice of going to CONCACAF in certain places where it was tough, and that we weren't able to reach it at certain moments, and then this group was doing it for everybody. So it was a fantastic moment to live at BMO Field, and won't regret it.
Speak to me about that moment when you see the first goal.
I tell you, I think we celebrated the whole game because we ended up losing, but you knew it was coming. You just knew it was coming, and the Belgian game, I would say, was one heck of a game. You thought we would have won that game too, but we just felt our team was so strong, we knew we were going to score that goal. And the way that goal unfolded, I was there in the stadium, and the build-up to it and how early it happened. I sometimes wish I was in Canada watching that, just to know that the excitement and all these watch parties that were going down were incredible. But to be in the stadium, it was electrifying. It was, you seen the red, you seen the maple leaf flag. It was remarkable stuff, and that's something that I will take with me for the rest of my life. That one moment when that ball hit the back of the net.
And you did mention that Belgium game, and I will tell you guys a fun little story. Over the summer, I was able to interview Thibaut Courtois, who is, of course, the Belgian goalkeeper, Real Madrid goalkeeper, and I asked him about the game, and I asked him about Canada, and he said that when Alphonso Davies came up to take that penalty, he was worried. And they were worried about this match, and they were intimidated. And obviously, as we know, sometimes the nerves can get out of hand, and it didn't go the way we planned it. But to have a goalkeeper of that caliber speaking so highly about Canada, what does it mean to know that we finally have the respect that we deserve from Croatia, from Belgium, from Morocco?
Yeah, look, I had the chance to be friends with Thierry Henry, and he was on the staff of the Belgian team. And I think you saw the images. He came to give an embrace to most Canadian players because he said, you should have won that game. And that was strong because they won the game, but they admitted it that they didn't play that well and things went their way. And that was a sign where it's not just we're at the World Cup, but we can play at that level and manage that standard. And now it's just to be able to repeat it consistently and be at World Cups and be able to win those games and now be in the second round. But it was fantastic, and like I said, having that feedback, and I have Laurent Simon, who's former Belgium international, who's at CF Montreal on the staff, and same thing. They were like almost ashamed that they had won the game because they saw what we were able to do, and all the headlines in the world were saying Canada should have won. Canada had a great team. So those were proud moments in a defeat.
And 2026, huge expectations, a lot of excitement. The World Cup is coming to Canada. What do you think we're going to see, both on the field and off the field, for Canadian soccer?
Well, I tell you, it's going to be big. The fact that we're hosting the World Cup, and the amount of attention that the men's national team will get is going to be great. One, but I think two, the pressure is going to be new, but expected and prepared to take in, because what we saw in Qatar, the potential's there. 2026 now, playing in your home grounds, it's a matter of now taking to the next step, and that's coming up the group. And I think that's one big takeaway a lot of the players talk about, a lot of us talk about, is, could we have come out of that group? For sure. It was definitely one of the strongest groups, but we had our moments, and we weren't far away from making the top two to qualify from that group. So I think that's the one piece now for the next 4 years that we're leading up to 2026. It's a matter of how prepared are we going to be to come out of our group.
Yeah, it's going to be tremendous. But like you said, it's pressure. But at the same time, when you're playing, you're probably going to be seeing a sea of red, having all these jerseys, because you are playing away when you're in Qatar. So that pressure of playing, but not having that support network. I know most of the families were there, but it's not the same. But it's going to be extraordinary, because I think a lot of people would have wanted to go to Qatar. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough room for all the fans to be there. And now I'll be on home soil. And it'll be, as we said, we dream to be at the World Cup, but you also dream to be in the venue, meaning to host it, to know how the country is going to react to it, so that now everything we saw in the bars, the restaurants, the schools, because this was November and December, which usually it's in the summer, and see how Canada is going to be flocking towards the cities, Canadian cities, to watch the team and to watch it on TV. I can't expect it, but yeah, the team has to also rise up and to be ready for 2026, because the standard expectations will be higher.
And as two former players, I would love for you to share some advice. There are some kids in the audience that I'm sure dream of being professional players, representing their country, wearing that Maple Leaf jersey. What is the best advice you can give them?
I think it just comes down to what this game's all about. It's about love and just enjoying it. Enjoy the youth and enjoy being young and playing football, because whenever you see a player score a goal, and what they do is celebrate. That's the youth in them. That's the little boy in them. And I think that's something they need to embrace. And that's the one thing that will take you to your dreams, is the love and obviously the hard work and dedication that it comes with, because there's going to be a time when it becomes pro, it's no more fun. It becomes the hardest thing in the world. And the things that get you through the hardship and the challenges and the barriers and the hurdles is the love. And that's that's the most important thing I would advise any kid to recognize about this sport if they ever want to become pro.
If I add on, I'd say perseverance, because as much as you've maybe heard our stories or you see the Alphonso Davies, Jonathan David, there have been obstacles in their past. There's been obstacles in our past. There's been doors shut. So not just because as you're doing your dream and you're living with passion and a lot of love, realize that, yes, we were cut from teams. Yes, we weren't picked by coaches. Yes, we didn't make it the first time playing in Europe. We had a lot of trials and tribulation, but it's because we persevered and we believed. So your perseverance of keep working at it. And no matter if people say no, you're the only master of your own destiny. And it's as much as you put in that you will get back. And that getting back is not only necessarily being a pro, is as far as you can push yourself, because there will be obstacles on the way. As much as you see the highlights on social media now, the great goals and everything, every player has a story of an obstacle that he had to overcome to reach his dream. So persevere tremendously in your dream.
It's never no, it's not now, and your time will come. Now, I would love to open up the floor to the audience if you have any questions. You have two Canadian men's national team legends in front of you. They have played the games that you dream of playing. They have paved the way. So again, we have our volunteer here at the front. So please raise your hand if you have a question.
Come on, guys, don't be shy. There's got to be a question or two.
It can be anything. Right there.
Oh, there we go.
I have one here.
There we go.
I feel it's a La Liga question.
Yeah, that. Which club did you play for in La Liga?
I told you.
Nailed it. And your experience.
Well, I see your jersey. So I've played against that team about 6 times. And we beat them twice, I would say. But the team I represented was Deportivo La Coruña from 2005 to 2009. But I love that team, by the way, that you have on.
What was it like playing in La Liga? Was it different? What was that moment?
Oh, it was probably the best experience and time of my life in terms of my career, and playing against teams like Barcelona, Real Madrid, scoring against Real Madrid. I mean, that stuff I still have to pinch myself to make sure that actually happened. But it was an incredible experience. And as Patrice said, it's probably one of the hardest leagues in the world to get into when you don't have a European passport, because typically they'll go after South Americans. and the South Americans will eventually get their Spanish passports. But being a Canadian, I was very, very fortunate enough to get there. And today, we have another Canadian who plays in La Liga. Does anyone know who that is?
Hand over there.
Kyle Lauren.
There you go.
There we go.
So second ever Canadian who has played in La Liga, Kyle Laren. So one of the most difficult leagues in the world. If you can make that as a Canadian, you're doing something special.
And I want to add, because June is not going to say it, but he did have to mark Andres Iniesta. And if you know who Andres Iniesta is, one of the premier midfielders, and he had to play against Ronaldinho, which we all, if you followed soccer, you know. So imagine being born in Canada and having to play against these prominent stars and being in La Liga. So those are the highlights also of when you've made it to that far, when you start from Toronto or from Montreal.
All right, do we have any other questions? Got some over there. Oh, right here as well.
How do you keep so calm under pressure?
Sorry, didn't
How do
hear?
you keep so calm under pressure?
Oh, I would say the calmness comes from confidence, but there is still anxiety a bit or stress.
I'm nervous right now.
So, but I would say the thing that allowed to show calmness, because I think all the players have some sort of pressure, is the factor that you repeat a lot, and the repetition leads you to have to progress, and the progress leads you to master something, and that mastering gives you that confidence to show up. Now we're on TV quite a lot, so talking comes easier, but we played because we repeated it so much, the game. And so when you went out there, you were confident to play against Andres Iniesta, or we did play against Cristiano Ronaldo against Portugal. So I would say the calmness comes from several hours of practicing, repetition, and knowing that you can perform at the right time.
And I mean, just to chime off on that, I've always felt nervous going onto the soccer field, walking into the studio. But typically when you love something so much, you know, the nerves suddenly kick in. But to his point, in terms of the repetition, that was something I had to put in my head when I was standing in line going onto a field at Camp Nou. And to your right, you got Ronaldinho, you got Samuel Eto'o, you got Xavi, you got Iniesta. I have to compete against the world's best that I used to watch on TV. I was very scared, very nervous. But then you remind yourself when you close your eyes that, you know what, there's actually people that you love so much in your life that believe in you. And they knew that you would get there one day. And those are the people that would run through your head over and over again. And those are the people you do it for. And that's why you end up stepping onto that field and you go to war with the best. So that's where the calmness comes from.
All right, we've got room for 3 more questions. I think this guy at the front has had his hand up for a while.
Who do you think is going to win the Ballon d'Or this year?
Who I think will win the Ballon d'Or? Personally, Lionel Messi. That's it's nothing to do that Erling Haaland didn't have a great year, but Lionel Messi went out to win the World Cup. And still, the thing I will add on is people forget at 36 years old, he scored 20 goals, had 20 assists in one of the premier leagues in the world in France, and went on to go and win the World Cup, which I won't say he did by himself, but he had to. He became the best player and was one of the better scorers. So I assume Lionel Messi will be winning his 8th Ballon d'Or, but you never know because Erling Haaland does have a lot of also potential to earn it. But for me, it will be Lionel Messi's.
Do you agree? No? Who do you have in mind?
Holland.
Erling Haaland, okay. I mean, I would say maybe second or third, but yeah, I have to agree with Messi as well.
After winning the World Cup, it's impossible
He
not
won the
to.
World Cup, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, 2 more questions.
How many years did you play in the La Liga?
I played 4 years in La Liga. I left Germany after playing in the Bundesliga for 5 years, and I was 24 years old. But before going to La Liga, I could have stayed in Germany and played for other teams. I could have signed in Tottenham as well. But then La Liga offer came, and that was my ultimate league and my dream to play in La Liga. And it happened, and I took advantage of the opportunity.
And the last question.
Who was your favorite player growing up?
Oh, very interesting. The players that I identified to in the 90s were, for me, Zinedine Zidane. Actually, Ronaldinho, watching him grow, but Ronaldo, the Brazilian, phenomenal, because I believe he did things back then that players are doing now. So those are the players, even though they were a bit older than me, not that much. When I watched them play, I wanted to go at the park and repeat and copy what they did and try to emulate and try to reach the leagues that they reached. So those were the players that I paid attention to much younger.
I would say growing up, you guys may not know this player, but Romario from Brazil. And the reason why was because during my time playing in Canada, I was always cut from the provincial team. I was cut from the national team because I was too small, and they said I was too slow. But then I watched this one player on TV one day, and he was a small guy, and he was so skillful, he was so crafty, creative, but he was playing for Brazil. And I'm like, why is this small guy playing for one of the best countries in the world, but I was getting cut from Team Canada and the provincial team? So that was my idol growing up. And then I eventually watched him in the World Cup in Michigan in '94. And ever since then, it hit me. I said, I'm going pro. I'm going somewhere. And then I started to follow my dreams. And El Fenomeno is also my second favorite player, I would say, the real Ronaldo. And I ended up playing against him 2 times when he was at Real Madrid. And luckily enough, I was able to change jerseys with him as well.
Well, what an incredible panel. Julian, Patrice, thank you so much for joining us, for all of the insight, and for joining us in Calgary.
Thank you.
Thanks
you.
everyone.